Hey everyone, Dawn here from Practical Spiritualism. Today I want to talk on a topic that is very near and dear to me, which is the feeling of being alone. So, what I mean by that is often for many of us, we have times in our life where we feel alone. We feel like, is this it? What is my purpose? Who am I? Lots of those big questions. And so I thought I would share the story, well, one of my origin stories. So, this origin story, we're going to start about 10 years ago. And about 10 years ago, I was about 39 years old, and I was searching for my truth. So, what I mean by that is, what is my truth? So, I had, as a child, felt let down, maybe forgotten, if there was a source, a spirit, a God that wasn't watching over me. And so I started to search, what is my truth? And I'd gone through lots of religions growing up. I grew up Anglican. Part of our growing up was learning about different religions. So checking out Catholicism, Mormons. I was married to my first husband, was with Jehovah's Witness. So I checked out or experienced many different religions that were out there. And although there were threads through them that I felt I connected to, there was a lot of pieces that I didn't understand or I didn't feel connected to. And so this led me on to this whole journey of what is my truth. And in that journey, I explored lots of different things within spirituality. So, I was a solitary practitioner of Wicca, which, so we're all clear, the first law of Wicca is to harm none. So we're very much within the white and the light here. And I kept searching through different even mythologies and that sort of thing, trying to figure out, like, what is my truth? What is my truth? And really what it was coming down to is I felt a feeling of not being settled, not being quite whole. Like there was parts that were missing that I really needed. And I couldn't seem to find it within the conformed rules that had been placed out there. So as I continued through my search, there was even places within Wicca where it didn't align. I didn't want to be a vegetarian. I did enjoy a drink. I kind of kept going through and what is my truth? What is my truth? And in this journey, it brought me through into spiritualism. And so I started to have people offer energy work to me. And within that was emotion code or aligning my energy centers. And when I was doing these works with people, I felt really good afterwards and I couldn't explain it. All I knew is that when I was finished, I felt a sense of peace, a sense of, oh, there I am. And I knew, I believed that in my journey, energy work wasn't for me to do. It was something maybe for me to experience, but it wasn't part of my path. And at the time, I was more in the corporate world. I was a lighting designer and salesperson, lighting showrooms. I was very good at my job. I had self-taught. I had bosses that treated me like absolute gold. I had a fulfilling career in the career itself. My ego was very well fed. I had a great life. We had a beautiful big home. We were a blended family. I had an incredible now husband. We had 2.5 kids, 0.5s for my French bulldog. We had 3 cats. Life was good. We traveled lots. We had nice vehicles. Life was good. And yet I had this feeling, is this it? Is this all there is to life? And I started to find myself feeling somewhat dissatisfied. I'd reached all of my material goals, and yet I still didn't feel whole. I was busy and I was hustling, but I didn't really connect with my children. My husband was probably one of the few people that I truly, truly connected with, but I didn't have time. And so it started to become a problem within my life. And one of my spiritual directors said to me one day, you know, Dawn, you really should be coaching. And the idea of coaching was very difficult for me. I had a lot of people in my life that kind of looked down on coaching, kind of made fun of it, was condescending towards it. It's not a real craft. And so the idea of leaving a very successful career and doing this seemed ridiculous to me. And it kept being brought forward, kept being brought forward. You've lived a life of shadows and you're here to show people how to get to the light. And I just couldn't see it as something separate. I was happy to coach and help people through things, but to do it as an actual job or as my vocation was something difficult for me to accept. And so I just kept moving through the journey and somewhat ignoring the nudges and signs as they come. Until one day, I was feeling tired and burnt out. I was feeling dissatisfied more than ever. And I just couldn't seem to feel the light in anything anymore. And I hit my knees. And at this point, I've been doing rituals and I have a spiritual practice. It's the first time I'm going to hit my knees and pray in a long time. And I asked very specifically, I said, I can't stop this wheel and I don't know what to do anymore. And I need your help. So if you hear me, I need your help. Afterwards, I got up, I went to work as per usual and did what I do. And part of that job that day was to drive, I live on an island, to drive down island to meet with one of my other showroom managers and have an interview with somebody. And as I was interviewing this person, I was like, oh, this is perfect. If she trains with this person, then maybe I can bring her up and she can take over for me at some point. Because I knew that something just wasn't right anymore. Even though I loved my job, I was good at it, and I made a lot of money. My ego was very well fed. It just wasn't enough. And so, anyways, on my way home, driving, it was a pouring down rain, barely see the road. There's a cop, an RCMP officer or SUV that's in front of me, keeping my distance. There's a lot of water on the road. Anyways, at one point, another vehicle comes onto the road. I am kind of slowing down as the water's kind of heavy on the road. They kept driving their way. Anyways, the other driver loses control of their vehicle. And it's like slow motion. I'm holding onto the wheel. I'm watching them lose control. There's an embankment onto my side, so I need to keep my car on the road. And clear as day, as somebody sitting beside me, I hear, you asked for this. Just as impact happens. I'm pretty shaken up, pull over to the side of the road after I get this person to stop. We exchange information. I am in full dissociation from my body, and I continue on home, which I've almost no recollection of. A couple little spots that I remember. Get home, I call my doctor's office, I call my husband, I check on my vehicle, go through the normal motions and try to get some rest. They tell me I'm not supposed to go back to work, so you got to rest. So I stay home. 6 days later, I get a call from one of my employees that one of my clients needs help. So I break the rules and I get back in my vehicle to go help a client. And on my way back from this client's house, I again get in a second accident. And again, as if somebody's sitting beside me, clear as day, male voice, you asked for this. This time I'm pretty shaken. I'm losing it. So I'm sobbing on the side of the road. We go home. My husband's only minutes behind me by whatever miraculous chance that is. And he gets me home. And I'm pretty shaken. I now have a concurrent concussion and I have full nervous system dysregulation, which will take years for anybody to diagnose. I would continue to work, trying to push through because I'm supposed to be a fast healer. And twice, 3 times, I'm taken off work for disability. On the 6-month point, they say to me, you're done. You're put on long-term disability and my life is going to change. And these are some pretty dark days for me. Because as much as I had been dissatisfied, I was really identified as that role of my job. I was identified of the role of the lighting goddess. I was identified with my role of supermom, with Wonder Wife. I was identified with all of these roles that had me really working 24/7 to try and make everything work. And all of a sudden, I can do none of them. I can't even answer 2 questions. I can't be in light anymore. I can't make sentences anymore. I can't remember things anymore. So my life is definitely turned upside down. As this continues forward, I start getting weird things happening. At this point, I would not have considered myself to be open to any spiritual lines. I would have to learn how to meditate. And within my meditation, I would start to open doors that were deeply locked inside of me since I was a child. And I would start to get knowings or understandings, what I call nudges now. You know, you need to read this book. You need to go do this. You need to go do that. Speak to this person. And it was scary as hell. But I was scared, and yet at the same time, I didn't know what else to do. And so I just started doing them. Now, often I needed to be asked or nudged 3 times. And so the journey would begin. I'd read the Course in Miracles, which I then realized it wasn't so much for the Course in Miracles, but it was for me to come back to terms with the word God, which I couldn't handle that word at that time. It was a trigger. And to not have a need to change it into goddess, to not get into this gender war, but instead to understand the concept or the essence of source, of universe, of God, and what that really looks like as a divine feminine, as a divine masculine, harmonized into one beingness. And so my journey would continue through. I would be nudged into, as I said, I would become a meditation teacher, and I would continue on the journey. And all these different teachers would be brought to me. And often energy medicine would be part of the work that would be brought forward, and I would fight it until I was brought emotion code and body code and started to do this work for myself. But what I really started to notice was I had begun a surrender experiment. Before my accident, I had started this practice from one of my old teachers, my old coaches, John Maxwell, which was to set a word for my year, and it'd be like my North Star. And so for the year after my accident, I set the intention with the word surrender. And usually every year I would change my word. And after I completed 1 year, I was sitting there and I was like, okay, what's my word going to be for this year? And it was surrender. And I realized I hadn't really surrendered much. I had surrendered enough. I was doing the nudges, but I wasn't really letting go. And so I would continue. And the following year, the word would be surrender. And on year 3, 2.5, 3, I would be given a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, which would be life-changing for me in my understanding of who am I. And I would start to really grasp the concept of who am I. And it began another whole journey, or added to the journey I was already on. And so as I continued down this journey, I then read his second book called The Surrender Experiment. And in his book, The Surrender Experiment, I would listen to it. I couldn't read. My eyes were badly damaged. And I couldn't track words, and I couldn't look at screens for very long. So I would audible. And so I would audible this book, The Surrender Experiment. And in this book, I would literally, it was like my heart was being cracked open. I was so in awe of what life could look like if somebody surrendered fully. And so again, I made my word surrender. And over these years, I think this year is the first year that the word hasn't been my word of the year. And this year was the word of benevolence. And to move into this kindness in the face of anything, to not need to judge or hold resentments or hold pain, but just to have benevolence, to truly find kindness in the face of anything that's coming, anyone that I'm dealing with. But up until this moment, it was surrender. And it was this realization that was in the letting go that I would be born. That in the releasing of all of it, I could find my light again. And it was within the surrender that every single step of my journey started to unfold. I would wake up one day with the understanding I needed to open up an integrated cognitive wellness center, which is where I'm sitting right now. And a friend would come forward and be like, hey, I was going to open up a wellness center. Why don't we do it together? And we would open this place up and it would just unfold. And I would change my coaching name. And I took my coaching training because I took those nudges and I thought it was supposed to be evolution to coaching. And one day I woke up and it was like, no, it's practical spiritualism. And so he's like, oh, don't you mean spirituality? And it was very clear, no, spiritualism. And I was like, okay. And I got really good at just saying, okay, and moving with each of the steps. Even though often I worried that the whole world would see me as crazy, including my husband. And so the world or the steps just kept coming. And within the steps came the healing. I had to clear my heart wall and I got to experience the joy at somebody else feeling my love, which is pretty big when you've had a heart wall for a long time. So often when you send love towards somebody, it maybe feels like neediness or love with boundaries or perimeters to it. Instead, all of a sudden, there's this welling up of unconditional love and this welling up of understanding and feeling unconditional love from somebody. And so all these beautiful gifts started to happen and unfold as I kept letting go of what I thought my life was supposed to look like, what my work was supposed to look like, and who I was supposed to be. You know, as I continued through this journey, there was a lot of things that held me back, a lot of fears, not being good enough, not being worthy of the role. Why would somebody work with somebody like me? I was a grade 10 dropout. I mean, bullied my whole life. I've been through domestic violence, rape, lots of other dark experiences. But it was only in my letting go in my 40s that all of a sudden I could find peace, like real peace, where there's this moment of what would it feel like to take radical self-responsibility. And as I healed and continued on my spiritual journey, I was able to really embrace this concept of radical self-responsibility, to not blame myself or have shame and guilt anymore, which was one of the reasons why I never stopped doing what I was doing before, was I felt ashamed that I didn't feel grateful for the life I had. Here I had everything that everybody could want on paper, and yet I didn't have fulfillment. I didn't have peace. And I felt guilty that all these people that believed in me and had supported me on this journey, and here I was wanting to walk away from it all. Not my family, but from my business aspects of my life. And once I started going into the journey of letting go, all of a sudden, all of that released. I could instead see each of those moments as the gifts, the miracles that they were, that brought me to this moment. Now, I'm not telling you this because I think everybody needs to change their careers and have a radical change of vocation. You may be in your vocation and still feel this way. But for some of us, we do need to make a change. We're playing a role that somebody else told us we were supposed to play. We're living a life the way other people, society said life is supposed to look. And instead, we're not really seeing ourselves. You know, when we're looking at energy work, the second center is the center of creation, that womb space, the sacral. When we look at that and we look at it from instead in concept of creation of life, of ourself, who are you? Who do you choose to be? Once we start to create ourselves as who we really choose to be, that means feeling our emotions, going through our story, picking it apart, and instead of blaming anybody, but we move from victim to victorious. That's radical self-responsibility, where all of a sudden it's no longer, you know, my mother's fault or my ex-husband's fault or the fault of the people that bullied me or harmed me. But instead, it doesn't mean they're off the hook. That's their own journey. That is all about them. But I take responsibility for my role. I was there. And so within that role, it also means that I get to be empowered again. I get to take all of my power back and say no more. Now I choose. And I don't need to pull my power back from them. I always tell my clients that, your power that you gave other people has their cooties on it now. So just cut it off. Let them have it. It's fine. Shut it down though. You are the most beautiful divine essence. Spiritualism, the ism is the essence of the source that is within you, your own light. And we are here as aspects of creation to expand, to create. And the first step of that is to create ourselves. Who do I choose to be? And then from there, it is through that choice, and even not making a choice or choosing to be what somebody else wants you to be is still a choice. And it's the lens in which we see everything around us. And once I realized that and chose to change my lens, to clean that window off and look at the world through a different set of eyes, everything around me changed. Suddenly I could see the possibility. And I was willing to play the role that I was asked to play. It is not the easiest role to surrender, to say, I will do anything that you ask. How may I be of service today? Who am I supposed to work with? What would you like me to do? Please use me, please lead me, please show me the way. At bedtime to ask, what is your dream for me? And then to wake up knowing you will do whatever you are nudged to do. And in this journey, all sorts of senses awaken. We hear, we see, we sense, we get little downloads, hits, knowings, and we start to expand and connect into the quantum field around us. We expand and connect into that field of unity consciousness. And within that is every answer to every question that we've ever asked. Because part of that field of unity consciousness is you, the self, in its most expanded state. And we finally get to connect with it again. So today I wanted to share this origin story with you because it was through the pain and the struggle of dissatisfaction, of feeling unfulfilled, that I began my rebirth. And that is what I want for you. I want this world to let go, to stop living through fate, creating our own life around us by force, by will, and instead align and attune our will with source so that we can co-create this world around us. And that is the definition of destiny, to be in co-creation with world, but of free will. And this is what I wish for all of us. This is what I wish for you. So today I wanted to share this story with you of who I am and how I came to be here and what it is that I do and why it is that I do it, so that you could just feel a little bit more maybe at ease in your own journey of letting go. If this resonates with you, please feel free to drop me a line. Follow me on any of my socials under Dawn Elgin or Practical Spiritualism. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can go to my website, practicalspiritualismco.com. There's an email, so you can send me an email in there. If there are any questions you would like me to answer or any topics you'd like me to touch on, please feel free to share those as well. I see the light in you, and it is brilliant. Brightest of blessings.